What's going on, hockey fans? This is episode 102 of the Clappercast. I'm Burke, and as always, joined by my co-host Sean. Sean, you don't have the Montreal sweater on today, but you're going back to your favorite team here. How's it going, man?
I got the Oilers bashing out of the way last week, so I don't have too much to say about them this week. Though there still will be some.
Yeah, I think they'll feature prominently in this episode still.
Yeah, they should still have a good segment.
So what we're going to get into is we're going to kind of talk about who's had a good off season so far, who's had a not so great off season, and who is kind of in the middle.
Yeah,
we might
basically
not talk
the
every
winners and
team.
the losers.
Yeah, we might not talk about every team, but we'll give a quick recap of the last 4 episodes, basically, where we went over each team, and there's been some things that have happened since each of those. So. We'll touch on that, but first off, the big news this week is really the offer sheet pettiness of the Carolina Hurricanes, getting back to at the Montreal Canadiens for their offer sheet that they did on Sebastian Aho a few years ago.
Yeah, so this offer sheet that Kotkaniemi has signed it, so it's now up to the Montreal Canadiens to match it. The offer sheet is a 1-year contract. I think it's $6.100035 million, and this offer sheet also features a $20 signing bonus. Throwback to Sebastian Aho, who wears number 20, and he was the target of the offer sheet from Montreal to Carolina a few years back.
Also, he was 35th overall.
Oh, is that where the 35 came from? Maybe. Okay.
I think so yeah,
I didn't piece that one together. I was kind of like, why is it?
Or he's not wears number 20, and he was in the 2015 draft. So 35,
like that. Okay.
couple ways there.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense why it's such a weird number. And basically, the entire Hurricanes organization, their social media team, has just gone all in on making it very obvious that this is some sort of petty revenge plan. The social media, they made their announcement tweet of the offer sheet in French. I think it was pretty poorly translated French as well, if I remember correctly.
Probably.
The statement that they had Waddell read or come from Waddell was basically word for word what Bergevin said a few years back about Aho. It's become quite apparent that this was not actually really much of a decision from Waddell himself. This was a Tom Dundon thing.
And yeah, I don't. I heard that they were trying to make a deal for Kotkaniemi, and the asking price from Montreal was too high.
Yeah,
and so they weren't able to get that. And to make this spicier, apparently Kotkaniemi, when he was scratched in the finals, thought that he had played his last game for the Montreal Canadiens, and so maybe there's a bit of a burnt bridge there. And it's like, well, I was watching the Hockey Guy on YouTube, and he was talking about this, so shout out to that guy. He's awesome. He was talking about how, either the Montreal Canadiens think that he's a valuable player, and they scratched him in playoffs, and they didn't want to trade him out when they were asking too much, or they think he's capable of developing further in the NHL, but they still didn't want to trade him out. So it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't... Scratching him in the finals seemed like a questionable move. Like when he came into playoffs, he scored like in his first game in after being a scratch to start playoffs, and then like pointed up to like the guys in the press box, like Romanov and Caulfield, I think were scratched at that time. It just seems like a bit of a weird relationship, but also he had 20 points in the regular season.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, yeah, Kotkaniemi has not lived up to what you'd expect out of the third overall draft pick, pardon me. But he's also not really performed a whole lot in the situations he's been given. He's been great in the playoffs, generally speaking. But in the regular season, it's either he's not really performing well enough to get the spots that he needs to do even better. So he kind of ends up overlooked. He ends up kind of shoved down on the third and fourth lines, but he never really performs well enough to get out of those spots either.
Yeah, it just seems like weird. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of... My thought is that Montreal might not match this because they did scratch him, and it's like...
I think that would be in their best interest, to be honest.
And just the cap hit of 6.1 whatever is so high for this guy, and then
that's
they have
basically
to re-sign
2
him.
to 3 times what he should be making on this contract.
Yeah, it's absurd. Obviously the Hurricanes want him. That's why they do. That's why offer sheets are like this. You structure it in a way where the other team doesn't want to do it, but then it's like, okay, well, if they don't match and he goes to Carolina, then you got to sign him for that again if you want to keep him. So you better hope he explodes.
Yeah, and the thing is, where's this guy going to play in Carolina? Because he's definitely not playing on that first line. He's not going to take out Trocheck or whoever's centering the second line. He probably won't be a winger on that line either. So he's going to get shoved on the third line with, who, Martinook and other offensive phenoms.
What a better situation for him to be in than where he is now.
Of course, I don't blame him for signing a contract that's going to give him $6.1 million. That's not, it's not on him. So, who wouldn't sign that? But for Carolina's perspective, it's like, why would you pay $6.1 million for someone who's probably going to be your third or fourth line center, if that?
Yeah, it seems like the pettiness is bizarre, and you got to keep in mind. So Carolina got offer sheeted by Montreal, or more accurately stated, Aho got offer sheeted by Montreal a couple of years ago or whatever, and he signed it. But Carolina offer sheeted Sergei Fedorov before the salary cap was around. I know it's different people and everything, but it's the same franchise, and they tried to absolutely fuck with Detroit with that offer sheet for Fedorov. They structured it like it was like something crazy, like $12 million was payable in the first 12 months. And then they also, it's something worse than that. But then there was like a $12 million bonus that would be if the team made it to the Eastern or to the conference finals. And it's like, well, obviously the Red Wings at that time, this was like 1998 or 2000 or something like that, would have a good chance of making it there, but Carolina might not. So they just would have screwed Detroit. They matched it, and he stayed with the team. And they had to pay him an absurd amount of money, and that's why Fedorov's number isn't retired in Detroit, because a lot of, I guess, ownership thought he fucked him over by signing that. So it's like Carolina did that, a while, not that long ago. And now they're being all petty and bitchy about it. So it's just funny how that was only 20, 22 years ago or something. And now here we are. They're announcing this in French and copy pasting the announcement and
tweeting an Uno reverse card.
Yeah. And it seems it's haha funny, and I know a lot of people are having a lot of fun with it, but it's also
from a hockey standpoint, it's dumb as hell.
It's dumb because the cap hits a lot and you're really banking on this guy to come back, and he did not have a great regular season. But also, it doesn't undo the fact that you lost all the goodwill. We talked about this, before this in our last episode, I think, just about how, they did the whole D'Angelo thing. So it's haha. Yeah, we still signed a scumbag, So,
and the last thing I really want to point out about the whole thing for Carolina is that they go and don't re-sign Dougie Hamilton. They trade away Alex Nedeljkovic over $1.5 to $2 million per season, but then they somehow, their owner is like, yeah, I'm gonna throw $6.1 million at this guy. Kotkaniemi from Montreal probably would have gotten, $2.5-3 million on a 2 or 3 year deal.
Yeah. Something
along those lines. And he's going to go and spend an extra $3 to $3.5 million on Kotkaniemi. That's terrible, terrible management of your players.
Yeah. It's haha funny, but it's, at the end of the day, it's okay, well, you could have put that money towards your starter, Nedeljkovic, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
You could have put that money towards a different offer sheet, like Pettersson. There's rumors going around that Montreal should just not match this and then just offer sheet Pettersson.
If I were Montreal right now, that's exactly what I would do. Because you're going to pay a player $6.1 million, you might as well throw that money at Pettersson because he's at least a bit better.
You know what they should do? They should offer sheet both Hughes and Pettersson. Because Vancouver is going to be strapped to sign both those guys to, longer deals or, or a high AAV right now. So, if you do both, it's like, all right, I'm not like,
yeah. Which one do you want, guys?
Yeah. So, and then there's there's a rumor going like, oh, they should take the first and the third that they would get in exchange for not matching this and offer it to Eichel or to Buffalo for Eichel. I don't know if they have anything.
No,
else
that's accurate to say they give it to Eichel. He is the owner, GM, coach, and
I mean that's the joke
agent.
from a couple of years ago, right? But I don't know if they have anything else as a centerpiece. Apparently, Kotkaniemi was kind of the piece that they would have been looking to trade there, but I don't know. I mean,
it'd have to center around Nick Suzuki at that point.
Yeah. So
and I can't see Montreal wanting to give up on Suzuki.
No, I don't think so. Or Romanov, I don't think either. So, it's just, I think, I just think Carolina could have offer sheeted a lot better of a player than Kotkaniemi for that same amount of money. Even that 6.1 to Pettersson, that's going to, Vancouver's going to have a legitimately hard time matching that with the cap space they have and the fact that they have to sign him and Hughes. So,
exactly.
Would you rather have Pettersson over Kotkaniemi? I would in a heartbeat. Absolutely.
100%.
So, if they got him instead of Kotkaniemi, that would have been insane. They would have just skyrocketed to the favorites in the Metro. If Pettersson coming back is healthy and able to play and everything. But I think it's a weird person to offer sheet. And I know it's like they're probably waiting to be petty, but then it's like, okay, well, what happens when your next RFA comes up, Carolina? That's the fight you're going to be in. Nietzsche, he's up. His deal's coming up next season, I think. So it's like, okay, well,
at a certain point, at a certain point, one of them's going to have to take the higher road and just be like, I'm not screwing over my team for this, petty feud, right?
Well, okay, so that's the thing too. It's like the Montreal one was a reasonable deal.
Totally.
It took Aho to UFA, but it wasn't like an insane and Aho was a great player.
The only thing they did was structure it in a way with signing bonuses that they didn't think Dundon would be able to or want to match it. Yeah. That was the only thing they did. They didn't go and completely overpay someone like this one is.
Yeah, so it's very strange. I don't know. I think Montreal's best suited to just not match it because it's like their cap situation isn't that great, and they can put that money towards a lot of better things. And it's like, yeah, so what if Kotkaniemi becomes a good player in Carolina? It's like whatever. The relationship's kind of strained already, so you don't want to make it worse by having him make way too much money and then just having to see if it works, and then the next time you have to sign them to basically the same. So just let them walk and take the picks. They're not going to be super. They're not going to be early in the draft probably. But
that's the thing. If they were to trade him, would they get what Carolina's probably going to be a mid to late first and a third? Would they get that in a trade at this point?
And then how tradable is he going to be at that cap hit? So. Yeah, I think Montreal's best suited to just let him go at this point, and we'll see. I think we're at the point of recording this. I think we're day 2 of the period of 7 days. I think, or 2 or 3. Anyway.
Yeah. By the next episode, we'll have an answer on this.
The fact that it wasn't an instant match is interesting. So we'll see. I think the only offer sheet that wasn't matched in the salary cap era was Dustin Penner.
So, and that one almost led to a barn fight. So
exactly, yeah. So we'll see.
We'll see if Bergevin and Dundon duke it out in a barn or something somewhere after this.
That would be interesting. My money's on Bergevin. What happens?
I don't know what Dundon's fitness level is. So
yeah, I think Bergevin's got it. I don't even have to see what Dundon looks like. I just think Bergevin's got it.
So, anyways, as a segue into the other part of this episode where we talk about the winners and losers, we can fairly confidently put Carolina in the losers category, even if Montreal matches this offer sheet. Between losing Dougie Hamilton, losing Nedeljkovic, it's just they were, and bringing in Tony DeAngelo is the big one too. That just puts them in the losers category. It's just not a great offseason for them, and it wasn't, like I kind of mentioned going over their offseason, it wasn't what you'd want out of a team that's trying to push forward to get farther in the playoffs. They seem to have taken a step back.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I don't think Kotkaniemi, even if he comes onto the team, turns that around. The fact that he would be like, the one of the highest paid guys on the team seems weird. But yeah, I don't think that bringing in Freddie Anderson and Antti Ranta, is going to be great. I mean, like they could both, bounce back a bit. And if they both stay healthy, sure. But yeah, the DeAngelo thing, just, like I said, kind of losing that goodwill. Their blue line absolutely got worse. And yeah, I don't know.
They lost Hamilton, and they also lost Jake Bean too, before I forget to mention him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know. I think the division is really strong, and they didn't get better. So I definitely agree that they're in the loser category. I mean, the one good thing that they did this offseason was re-sign Andrei Svechnikov to a pretty good contract. So that right on for that. I mean, not every move is going to be bad, but overall, I think that the positives are definitely outweighed by the negatives here.
Absolutely.
So I mean, to stick with the bad here, just to get it over with here, Sean. Edmonton Oilers.
Oh, absolutely. Just
bad,
terrible offseason.
Definitely not the greatest. The fact that they made the move early to get Duncan Keith, and after that they didn't really set a precedent. They missed out on the precedent of guys going for free, and they missed out.
Yeah,
they moved a little too early. And then a little too late on some things too. Like I think if they were looking at making a change in net, they didn't do anything fast enough. So they're sticking with the same tandem.
Yeah, like we ranted hard on them for a while in the previous episode, going over the Pacific. But this is that entire disaster on the right side of their defense where, whatever happens behind the scenes, Adam Larson calls Ken Holland's bluff and goes to Seattle. That's a huge loss. They replace it with Cody Ceci and, re-signing Tyson Barrie and then trading Ethan Bear to get, a third-line left winger. Just it was kind of a situation that Holland created, and then he tried to get his way out of it, and it just doesn't look very good. And, Duncan Keith on second pairing defense still. It's just a lot of money in term going to things going to players that like probably shouldn't have that much term. Zach Hyman's going to be a great, workhorse type player, but that $5.5 million for 7 years, I think, like that's basically another Milan Lucic contract. Hyman's about the same age, max of 40 some points per season, couple of knee surgeries already. He might be good in these next few seasons here, but it's just going to be a really bad contract long term.
Yeah, and I know last season we were talking about how good Darnell Nurse was, but that contract is a lot of these defense contracts that were signed this season are just like whoa.
Yeah.
So that 9.25 contract for Nurse is definitely probably about like $2 million more than I thought he would have gotten. So
that's where I would have had him too.
So that hurts. And losing a guy like Larson in the expansion draft after he's always been kind of like quietly good, but he kind of had his coming out party last season. Just how people were noticing how important he was, and to lose him right after that, sucks. So yeah, I mean, like you said, we kind of talked ad nauseum about this in last week's episode. So if you want a little bit more info about or if you want to hear the dismay of Sean, just go to that episode and find the Oilers segment. But yeah, I mean, definitely a tough off season for them. Maybe let's switch to a little bit of good news. Shake it up. I think a team that had a good off season, moving a couple provinces away here. Winnipeg Jets. They got their D-men.
Yeah, I legit my note that I've written down here is in all caps, and it said they finally got a D, and they got two of them.
Yeah,
in fact,
congrats.
So double win for them. I mean, for how many seasons now have you and I been sitting here saying Winnipeg needs defense, and they just haven't been able to find the right ones. And they go and get Brendan Dillon. You've watched him a bit lately as a Capitals fan, and he's a solid defensive defender. He's going to be someone who really shores up the middle. He's probably going to play second pairing there, and he's going to be just excellent to solidify things. And Nate Schmidt's going to give them a little bit of an offensive two-way side of things as well.
Yeah, I think that Jets fans will really like Brendan Dillon. He plays a really physical game. He's not afraid to drop the mitts. I think that they've finally got depth on their blue line. They look like a lot better defensively. They got Morrissey, Schmidt, Pionk, Brendan Dillon, Dylan DeMello, Nathan Beaulieu, Logan Stanley, fucking rights, Sammy Niku.
Yeah, that's actually an NHL caliber defense.
Mm-hmm.
The compared to the last couple of seasons where it's kind of filled up with a bunch of 4, 5, 6 guys playing after Morrissey, basically.
Yeah, and then they've got Heinola, who could fight for a spot. So yeah. I think they're in a much better place on the blue line, and up front, we'll see. If Pierre-Luc Dubois can have a better full season with the team. It's probably a weird time to make a change in last season.
The big one for him is just going to be that consistency, because he looked lost with the Jets. There was so many instances of just no chemistry and just not knowing where guys are going to be, not knowing where to really be himself. It's maybe going through a training camp, going through a preseason, hopefully getting some consistent line mates will help with that, just so he can kind of become more comfortable with the lines, with the system that he's playing in now.
Yeah, for sure. And then they re-signed Paul Stastny, who a lot of people thought was going to leave. So, all around, I think that they did pretty good.
A low-key addition, too, that I think is going to have a really good impact if he gets in the lineup is Riley Nash. He's sort of been very quietly one of the better fourth-line centers, defensive penalty kill type guys over the last few seasons. So that'll really help just give them some depth, give them something of a different a player of a different nature that they didn't really have in anyone else, is that defensive forward.
Yeah. And they lost a few guys. Like they lost their backup goalie. He Laurent Brossoit went to Vegas. They also lost Matthew Perreault.
Yeah. Mason Appleton in the expansion draft.
Yeah. So there's a few guys who left, and then Trevor Lewis. But overall, I think that they improved, and if Nate Schmidt can have a better, if he can be absorbed into that lineup better than he was in Vancouver, I think that they, he should be a lot better there. And then Brendan Dillon, I think is going to be like that, a more stable kind of guy for them, and I think the fans will really like him. So yeah, good job for the Jets. Finally got their defense. Like you said, they actually got two of them. So I guess while we kind of touched here on two Canadian teams in a row, is there any other Canadian team that you would put in the top or the bottom of this year's off season so far?
I'm putting Toronto in the winners column. I think they made a huge upgrade in net, getting Peter Mrazek. He's put up amazing numbers in Carolina here recently, better than Freddie Anderson, and I think that 1-2 thing, if Jack Campbell can find anything that or any amount of goodness that he was at the end of last season, between him and Mrazek, they should be good. And I think they've also found some really good value in the players that they brought in. So they did lose a lot of their depth forwards over the offseason. But they're bringing in guys like Andre Kasha, who's continually on guys to watch because he's good. He's just hurt all the time. They bring in Michael Bunting.
Perfect for Toronto,
right? Yeah, they bring in Michael Bunting, who kind of broke out in Arizona last season, put up a whole bunch of goals, and now he's signed to a super cheap contract for a couple of years to hopefully give them some depth scoring. And Nick Ritchie probably going to fit in well in Toronto. He's probably going to
park him in front of the net.
Yeah, park him in front of the net. He got some success on the power play in Boston last season, and that's basically what he was good at when he's not like kneeing people or something. And David Kampf, low key depth forward, but he's kind of solid in some stability down at the bottom. And Josh Ho-Sang on a professional tryout. Like, and it's all value, like low AAV but high ceiling, high potential return on that.
And then Curtis Gabriel to add some fisticuffs to the mix.
There you go.
So the Wayne train doesn't have to do all the fighting on the team. Yeah, I think that you're right. I think their goaltending got better if Mrazek can stay healthy. He had some trouble doing that last season, but that tandem I think is a little bit more confidence inspiring than Anderson was kind of at the end of his tenure with the Leafs. And I think he got a lot of blame for some of those playoff series, but it's like, well, he can only do so much when the team isn't scoring.
Yeah, and when you have you routinely have a defender giving away the puck in really bad situations, like you can only do so much to cover that. Yeah, for sure. And then on the blue line, they actually didn't lose Travis Dermott, which was the kind of the rumor. Right, and I forgot to mention that Dubas's handling of the expansion draft was probably the best in the entire league.
Yeah,
where he trades a prospect back to Pittsburgh that he traded from Pittsburgh a couple of years ago, and what was it, like a seventh round pick or something?
Something, yeah.
For some really low pick for McCann, and basically McCann got picked in the expansion draft, and Dubas lost nothing.
Yeah,
just a late round draft pick for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so definitely a great handling of that. It allows them to have the limited depth that they have in blue line. Where they've got Muzzin, Riley, Brody, Hall, Travis Dermott, Rasmus Sandin, and then Timothy Liljegren as guys you're probably going to battle for those spots. I think Sandin should really kind of have a bit of a breakout this season. He looked really good. So he's got to play those young guys a bit more, I think. And
they'll definitely get a chance to this season.
Yeah, and so I think you're right to point them out as a good off season, because they've got their guys, like they've got their main guys, and then they've kind of got that rotating cast in the background. And so this year it looks like they've got a pretty good one. But there is a lot of guys. Like there's a lot of guys in the mix. Like they've got so many players.
It's a ton of competition and a ton of they're kind of they're just throwing a whole bunch of shit in the wall and seeing what sticks, basically.
Yeah.
Not saying the players themselves are shit or anything. It's just they've got a lot of potential options there, and there's going to be a lot of competition, and you'll probably see just a giant rotating cast of players coming in for a few games here and there when they're hot.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, otherwise in the former North Division, I think most of the other teams are kind of somewhere in the middle. Like I wouldn't say that they've won or necessarily lost. I would say that the jury's kind of not out on some of them. Like the biggest kind of one, the biggest gamble for me, I think, is the Canucks. With Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and what's going to happen there? They really tried to shake things up. They really brought in that guy who they wanted for a while. They got Connor Garland. They swapped out Beagle, Roussel, and Louis Eriksson to Arizona, and they've got Podkolzin coming in. So it's like, what are they going to look like? I don't know if they got better or worse.
We'll have to wait and see. I've put them in my losers category for now because I'm not a huge fan of that trade they made. It's a better use of the $12 million that they were spending on the 3 players they gave up, but they've also just tied themselves into that money for 5-6 more seasons instead of the one more that they were going to have with those other 3 guys. Ultimately, it's still down to how much and if and when they get Hughes and Pettersson signed, because they're still RFAs as of this episode, so we don't know what their lineup's going to look like. We don't know what those contracts are going to look like, and with the amount of money being thrown at young defenders this offseason, like how much is Hughes going to want? How much is Hughes going to get? Is he going to stay? Like, there's so many questions still out that we don't know if they're going to be, confirmed losers or not.
Yeah, there's just too much up in the air still. And then quickly, Calgary, I don't know. I mean, they lost their captain. They've got a few new faces in town, but, they don't have a backup goalie. So I don't know. And then Montreal, I don't think they're going to be in the finals, so they probably got worse, but a lot of it's due to injury. And then,
I put Montreal in the losers category just so I can bash them again for drafting Logan Mailloux. Also, their roster did get a lot worse. They lost Dano and Tatar. Shea Weber is out to injury, so there's a definite downgrade in the players that they have.
And Corey Perry. Noticeable loss.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the Dano one stings, but other than that, I don't know. And then quickly, just because, we might as well round out the mix here. Ottawa, I think they're right on pace. I don't know if they really got better. They still have to sign Brady Tkachuk and Drake Batherson. And so we'll see what happens there. But, they turned it around kind of at the end of the season. So, they got still a really fast young team. So that's good at skating. I don't know. They're kind of in the middle for me. But another team that I just wanted to mention as a positive off season, and again we talked about this in our last episode, just to bounce off the Dano thing, but the Los Angeles Kings. I like what they're doing.
Yeah, they didn't make a whole lot of moves. They made a few big ones. Most of the stuff stayed the same, but the ones that they made are astute. I find them to be really smart moves. They pick up Victor Arvidsson for cheap for some scoring depth, for a chance for him to bounce back. Like we just talked about Dano. They bring him in for that two-way forward depth past Kopitar, because, Kopitar can't do everything, right? And then they bring in Alex Edler, who's just going to be a steady veteran presence on D. And he's going to be great when they have all the younger defenders that they have come up and, get ready for the NHL, that they have someone like Alex Edler there to teach them and show them the NHL way.
They didn't have to do a crazy amount, but the moves that they did, I like a lot. And so just wanted to give them a quick shout out there. And then, there's, I think a team that we might disagree on here, but I've got them in, jury isn't out yet, but Philadelphia. They've dramatically overhauled their blue line. I'm leaning positive on them. I know that you think that they overpaid a lot for the moves that they did make. I think particularly like the Gostisbehere and Ristolainen one. But I'm hesitantly optimistic, I guess, for Philly. And I think it could go either, by the Thanksgiving mark, we'll know if it was a good offseason or if it was really bad.
Yeah, honestly, you're right. I do lean towards them being a bit of a loser, just because I don't think those moves are as good as advertised. A lot of it, to me, depends on how Ristolainen plays in a new system, because he's terrible analytically. He's perennially one of the most, bashed players on social media for that type of performance, but he's also going to be playing in a smaller role in Philly, so he could end up thriving in that. They gave up a lot for getting rid of Gostisbehere, for getting Ristolainen, and also don't forget their backup goalie decision to bring in Martin Jones to back up Carter Hart. I feel like they could have and should have been quicker on that one to get someone a little bit better.
Yeah, that's tough, but maybe Jones will look a bit better in a reduced capacity than he was in San Jose, because he's clearly not the guy. So I don't know. There's glimpses of him, but I don't know. Philly's a hard place to go for a goalie. So yeah, I don't know. I think I've always had a soft spot for Philly, so I want them to do better, and I know they have that on off. Every other year they do good.
I do like that Ryan Ellis move though. I think Ellis is going to be great for them. That's going to be such a great pairing, such a great meshing of players with Provorov and Ellis.
Yeah, I think he'll look sharp for them, for sure. And then another team that's I don't know. I kind of want to hear your opinion on it because it's been a while since I actually wasn't on the episode with you when we were talking about this, but Chicago Blackhawks. So the moves that they've made, it looks like they're trying to make a big push here.
It does, right? They sort of half-assed their rebuild, and now they're like, oh, we still have a chance, so we're going to go for it again. And, jeopardize the rebuild and kind of do that half retooling thing that I don't think is going to work. But yeah, I've got them firmly in the losers category. Again, I just want to bash them for the whole Brad Aldrich thing, the whole disgusting situation coming out of their locker room from 10 years ago. But also, like, that Seth Jones trade, they gave up so much for him. They paid him so much in that next deal. They let Pia Suter walk. They didn't qualify him. He was a really solid midline forward for them last season.
27 points in 55 games.
Yeah, like, that's his rookie season. He's putting up, top-tier third-liner, average second-liner level production, and you just let him walk for nothing. But
yeah, that seems like a miss.
Yeah, they bring in Jujhar Khaira, who's he's an excellent penalty killer. I'm kind of annoyed Edmonton didn't qualify him or keep him around for cheap. But yeah, overall just a loser for all of the above reasons.
Yeah, it's I think they're not really in the right. I get it because like they've got Kane and they've got Taves, who knows if Taves is coming back for next season
and at what capacity.
But like, it seems like they did better than they thought they might for a period last season, and then now they're like, oh well, Kane's here. We probably need to go all in again while he's still here. And it's like, well, you got rid of Boqvist and a guy like Pia Suter, who were, pieces that you could have kept around for the next kind of push you wanted to make. And so I don't like losing those two guys, especially Suter for free. That seems really dumb. But they brought in Seth Jones, who is a polarizing defenseman, I guess. Like, I think he's, I like Seth Jones, but I think he's definitely overrated. And then they bring in Marc-Andre Fleury. And it's interesting for me because I didn't really think that they had a big problem in net in Chicago.
They kind of did. So Kevin Lankinen is kind of destined to probably be a starter right away. He was great last season. He trailed off near the end, and he actually ended up losing a lot of starts to Subban and Delia by the end of the year. But they weren't great in net. They didn't really have the consistency. They didn't really have anything proven. And like I said, if Lankinen kind of trailed off by the end of the season, I'm not sure if they had the confidence that he was ready to be a full-time starter yet.
I mean, their defense sucked too.
That too. So, yeah, I can see, you bring in Marc-Andre Fleury, he's not going to be a starter, but if he can 1A, 1B with Lankinen, then there's at least two goalies, because you can't go all in on one goalie like, say, Calgary's doing with Markstrom if the goalie isn't proven to be able to play 60-plus games a season.
Yeah, fair enough. I just thought that, they it's just weird for me that they're trying to, like, go in for, like, these big name players at this point. Like, I don't know. I don't think they're going to be particularly good in the Central Division. So
no, they can probably compete for a playoff spot between St. Louis kind of trailing off and Minnesota. Who knows where they're kind of going to be at? But they should be firmly in the middle of that division somewhere, competing for third or a wild card spot. But
yeah, I don't know. It just seems like I thought they should have had a little bit more patience here,
yes.
and try and come back a bit stronger than perhaps they might be this next season. And
absolutely.
How is Marc-Andre Fleury? He just won the Vezina. They got him for free basically, but how is he going to look behind a defense that's a lot shakier than Vegas's? I like that they brought in Jake McCabe, and then the Tyler Johnson move I think makes some sense. Chicago seems to have luck with smaller forwards, so why not? But yeah, I have them in losers category too. It just seems like I don't know what they're doing, and well, I do. I just don't think it's the right move. And then just losing some of their best young players is why and then Seth Jones at $9.5 million. It's
Absolutely,
like, oh my
yeah.
gosh.
They're kind of acting like they're where Colorado is right now. But in reality, like Colorado's coming up the hill and Chicago's heading down it, and they're kind of trying to act the same as if they're ready to go back up again. But they didn't give it enough time on the rebuild to stock up the way that they needed to.
Yeah, and I see them as losers right now, but who knows? They could go on a bit of a run with
Exactly.
the Patrick Kane show here.
Yeah, I mean, like Kane, DeBrincat, if they can click again, they can do great. Like they do have a decent enough roster that, like I said, they should be competing for a playoff spot in that middle of the division where it's going to be them, St. Louis, Minnesota, and Winnipeg for a couple of playoff spots. And because the Pacific is so weak, their chances are they're going to be, all of the wild card spots out in the Central. That could be a real possibility to have that. So,
Yeah. All right. Well, is there any other teams that you've pointed out as being a bit of a winner here?
The New Jersey Devils, quite possibly, in my opinion, the best offseason of any team. They brought in the biggest free agent, Dougie Hamilton. They get Thomas Tatar. They get Jonathan Bernier, and they build on an exciting core that they already had there. It's a real turning point for them. And Ryan Graves, yeah. It's a real turning point for them in this rebuild where they seem to be finally ready to climb up the standings. In the Metro, they're in the Metro. In the Metro, yes. They've got, Pittsburgh and Washington are starting to hit the end of their windows, and at some point they're going to start falling down the standings, and New Jersey's trying to be right there to be ready to jump up and take the position when that happens. So it might not be this season, but within the next year or two, that's probably going to be starting to happen. So for them to be setting themselves up to be competitive now is great, and it's a clear sign that the players think that is too, because they're attracting talent to New Jersey.
Yeah, I really like what they've done. We talked about this during the Metro division episode we had, but bringing in that number one D-man, huge.
Yeah.
Guy with a bomb, Dougie Hamilton, and then bringing in Ryan Graves, a guy who's stable defender, younger anyway, and can play with some big guys like Cale Makar.
Yeah, I think Graves is a plus-minus fiend as well. He's great in that category.
He was 2 years ago. Last year he had a bit of a drop off for that. I think he was a league leader actually 2 years ago. But he was something absurd like plus 40 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and then they get Nico Hischier back, hopefully healthy. They get Jack Hughes another year of development because he started looking good last season, and it just all looks like it's going to start coming together right away for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it should be an exciting year for them, and really looking forward to see what they can do. And they've got a pretty good prospect pool too, so there might be some surprising players that push for a roster spot here. And yeah, they've got a really young team too, so they're starting to look strong, like you said, when some of the other teams' windows are closing and they're kind of always opening up. So yeah, I like what they've done. They're definitely one of the winners for me too.
Yeah, I think having brought in Jonathan Bernier as well gives them another option in net just in case Mackenzie Blackwood doesn't bounce back after his difficult year last year. The hope is that he's recovered fully from his bout with COVID-19 and he'll be back to that form he was in his rookie season, because if he can do that, then the Devils are going to be an underrated force to be reckoned with in that division.
Yeah, I think they've got a really good opportunity to be a good team. And then not too far away geographically, at least, I think another team that has had a pretty decent offseason, is Boston Bruins. They've re-signed Taylor Hall. He looked like he was a really good fit for them, so they signed him. So it's kind of nice to see Taylor Hall get a home, perhaps for longer than a season here, and gives them some scoring up front. Talk about a team that's in their window. That's the Bruins. So I think that move makes sense. His deal expires the same year as Brad Marchand, so they're kind of going for it. They're bringing Nick Foligno, who should be a great Bruins player. I think that he's just the type of guy that just screams Bruin. Like I don't know. He's got the name. The name doesn't have as many consonants as I think a great Bruins player would have.
Also, his name isn't Charlie.
yeah. Well, they still got Charlie Coyle, so there's at least one.
And McAvoy.
Craig Smith is a good Boston name, I think, too. Just like that nondescript player. But Eric Howler, Thomas Nosek, and then Derek Forbort on the blue line, and then Linus Ullmark. Like some pretty like great additions, I think. Forbort's a gigantic defenseman. I think Boston loves with their history of Chara, and then Ullmark was a good goalie, even though he was on a shitty Buffalo team.
He put up amazing numbers on the team he was in. I don't have them in front of me, but he was the only Sabres goalie to put up a goals against average below 3, and I think his save percentage was in the 9 somewhere, which is great considering the team he was on. He only played 20 games, but that's still 20 games is enough to completely throw you out of whack playing with Buffalo last season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that they've they've had a few losses, but I think that they've really really signed some great additions, and I really like that Ullmark pickup for them.
I disagree a little bit on putting them in the winners category. I would throw them in the middle, almost leaning on losers, just because I don't like the amount of turnover. Like you just mentioned, they lost a few guys. We're looking at Yaroslav Halak, Dan Vladar, David Krejci, Nick Ritchie, Andre Kasha, Kevin Miller, Sean Corelli, Jared Tenorti, Greg McKay, Jeremy Lauzon, and possibly Tuukka Rask. That's a significant amount of your roster turning over in one season. The Bruins are a good team, and the main core is still there between their, Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak line, and a lot of the top defenders are still there. So they have the core to bring everyone in to get them all acclimated into the system. And a lot of solid veterans like Foligno is going to be a great addition for them, like you said. But I think it's kind of a sign of things changing for Boston, that they might start falling down the standings a bit this year, and they're kind of grasping just to try and fill these spots that they don't have the ability to fill from within anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I would push back on that a bit, because I think that the main roster guys that they lost were Nick Ritchie and David Krejci. A lot of those other guys that you mentioned are, bottom of the lineup kind of guys, and Kevin Miller, I guess, but he's been hurt on and off for the last however many years,
and he feels that same thing where he only plays about half the season, anyways.
Yeah, and then I think the Krejci one hurts the most, and then I think Rask. He came out and said basically, "I'll sign for cheap because I want to play in Boston." Yeah. It's like, so okay, well, he'll probably come back.
Assuming he's going to be healthy and able to. We'll see kind of how his hip recovers.
But a tandem to open the season of Ullmark and Swayman, I think is, depending on how Swayman plays this season, I think that's pretty solid. Yeah. And then if Rask comes back in, after he rehabs from his injury, I think that is likely.
Yeah, so Ullmark has never played more than, I think, 37 games in a season, either injury or because he's in a 1A, 1B / backup role. So this will be his first shot, assuming he stays healthy, to really put up a 40, 50 game season. And it also means Swayman's going to get a longer shot as well. So, they, like you said, they're going to have those few months to test these two out. Hopefully Tuukka Rask is able to come back, because getting him back around January to be ready ready in playoff mode or whatever for March, April, that would be a huge addition to have that three solid goalies ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I could see how you can see their turnover being dramatic, but I really think that roster spots, it's not super substantial. You've got a lot of guys coming back. Like if we look at the forwards, it's like Patrice Bergeron, Pasternak, Marchand, Hall, Coyle, DeBrusk, Smith, Chris Wagner, Trent Frederick. He was not in the lineup all year. Curtis Lazar, Bleed, and Kuhlman. And then on defense, they've got McAvoy, Carlo, Grzelcyk, Mike Riley, Clifton, and coming back. So, there's a bit of a change with the new guys coming in, but I think that they've done a pretty good job of absorbing that. The only question mark is kind of the number 2C. If that's going to be Charlie Coyle or Nick Foligno, or if they're going to bring somebody else in somehow.
Yeah. So Charlie Coyle is basically the assumed second line center heading into the season. But that's entirely dependent on if he can bounce back, because he was not great last season. He did not put up many points, and he acknowledges this himself in talking about being prepped and ready to go for that second line center spot.
Yeah, so depending on how he does, we'll see. A guy that I would like to see bounce back a bit is Eric Howler. Like when he was on Vegas the first year, he looked really good. I think he had like 30 goals or something like that. So, he's got a scoring touch, so maybe he can, add something to their depth. But yeah, I mean, I think that, they're still in their window, and they've done an okay job of kind of staying where they're at. They're going to be in a tough division, being back with Tampa Bay and Toronto. And so it's going to be tough to win that division. I don't think they will, but I think they'll definitely be in the mix for a playoff spot. And then, I mean, I've got a lot of teams on my list here who are kind of in the middle. But one that I kind of wanted to point out is St. Louis. I've got them. I don't know yet. That's my rating for them. They lost Vince Dunn and Jaden Schwartz to Seattle. Tarasenko is rumored to want out. But they brought in Brandon Saad and Pavel Buchnevich. So
yeah, I originally, when I was kind of prepping for this, I put them in my winners category because I liked the additions of Saad and Buchnevich to help give them the offense they needed to, get a positive goal differential again, because they sat at -1 in goal differential last season, and if you don't have a positive goal differential, chances are you're not making the playoffs. So to get the offense addition is, going to help counter that. But I scratched them out eventually because I think the real issue was defense and goaltending, that they gave up a lot more goals than they should have, than the teams around them in the standings did. And they didn't really do anything to address either of those, whether it's just waiting for a bounce back, waiting for like Krug and Justin Falk to kind of mesh together a little bit better and get used to the St. Louis. Maybe that'll improve itself this season without any work. But I don't think they really addressed the issue, so I kind of scratched them out of the winner side.
Another guy that they lost was Hoffman too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I don't know. I think that they're definitely not a better team, and their defense looks kind of. I mean, they're like the top 3 is good, I think, but like it's kind of scary after that. So we'll see. And then that Binnington contract isn't looking super great. But I saw an interesting discussion the other day, and it was just about if they made the right choice giving Ryan O'Reilly the C instead of Tarasenko. Tarasenko has been there for a long time, and there was that rumor.
Tarasenko's whole thing, right? I've been here for longer, so I deserve it.
Yeah, he had worn the A for so long, and bled for the team and gone through the surgeries and blah blah blah, and been a team guy, and now he wants out. And people were talking about how Ryan O'Reilly did really poorly on really bad teams, like Buffalo and Colorado, and so I don't know. Looking back, it's like, did they make the right decision giving the seat to a guy who had just come there? They won the cup. Was a big part of that cup run. Tarasenko was too. But Or should they have given it to like Braden Shen, a guy who had been there for a while? So yeah, it's just interesting to see, like, watch this team. After they won the cup, it's kind of like the Capitals, but their team is a lot different than the cup team, whereas the Capitals team is pretty much the same. But they've had their struggles after they won. So yeah, I think that they've. I mean, like they could be better, but man, it's the jury's not out for me yet. I just don't know.
Yeah. One other team I wanted to mention is in the winners category, not necessarily because they really improved the team, but just because of what moves they made, is the Arizona Coyotes. They really did a interesting and excellent job of basically weaponizing their cap space to just completely stock up on draft picks. They got all these players for next to nothing, or nothing in most cases. Got a whole bunch of draft picks in return, and they're filling all of these roster spots of guys who have left, guys who are underperforming, guys who aren't really NHLers. They're getting NHL players in return for nothing, and draft picks to help start their rebuild. And they seem to be really setting up properly to do a rebuild this time. And just getting all those draft picks, it's just a good start in the right direction for a franchise, finally.
Which makes it really sad that they might be moving.
Yeah, and we'll have to see what happens there, because the arena canceled their lease or something?
The city
canceled the lease, okay.
City of Glendale canceled the lease to the arena. And it's been like a whole saga for like a number of years that they couldn't meet negotiations on contract length, and the city of Glendale was losing money on this, and when you're losing, and apparently like the team owes like something like $2 million or something to the city, and it's like, okay, well, now they got to find a new place. So is that going to be in Arizona? They've cleverly changed the team name from Phoenix to Arizona so they can go somewhere. I think there's a rumor that they might go to like Tulsa or something like that. But yeah, it's like I don't know. Everyone's kind of salivating at the mouth that move them to Houston, or move them to wherever, move them to Quebec City, blah blah blah. I hope that something happens here, like just resolve it, because it's like, you think about like why Oliver Ekman-Larsson wanted out of Arizona. It's like, the team was struggling. There's changing ownership, different coaches all the time. They struggle with like a fan base, and the team's not doing very good. Lots of injuries, blah blah blah. It's like, man, imagine this team moving again, and just like how hard that would be on the players.
Yeah. To now all these players, they're going to have to go through a season of complete uncertainty over what's going to happen with the team. And that's, to add that into all of the stuff you just mentioned is just, it's not going to be a great or a particularly fun environment to be in. So you kind of hope that the arena situation gets solved pretty quickly. It's, I read a little bit about an arena or something in Tempe, or playing on like a university arena or something, but they wouldn't have enough seating for the league to allow it while they're getting something ready. So there's a couple of options in the area, I think, but nothing solidified, and who knows if they'll ever be able to make it work.
Yeah, I'm not sure, man. I'm sure it's frustrating for Arizona fans to kind of not know what's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, getting back to like the off season here, aside from the fact that their team might not exist after next season, at least in Arizona. Yeah, I think you're right though. They've done a good job of bringing in players who, their cap hit. They can absorb their cap hit, and they don't actually owe a lot of money to salary wise. They're getting a lot of draft picks. Like next year's draft, they've got 5 second round picks, 2 firsts.
It's basically like when we go and play franchise mode in NHL, whatever, right? You just go and stockpile all the draft picks and then build up your team there.
Yeah, and it's a good off season, but this team is going to be brutal.
Yeah,
next year.
Oh yeah, they have NHL players filling most of the roles, but when I say NHL players, I use that really loosely. because a lot of them are underperforming, aging, barely playing, and not to mention they don't really have goalies. Like Carter Hutton and Josef Koronar are their goalies right now.
Yeah.
That's not looking too great.
Yeah, and one of the bright spots of last season was Michael Bunting. He went to Toronto. They lost their captain, Ekman Larsson, who was very vocal about wanting to get out of there. They lost Connor Garland. So, yeah, they brought in a lot of
rumors about Phil Kessel as well.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so this team is going to be really bad on the ice. I don't expect them to do particularly well at all, especially now that they're in the Central. That's going to be really hard. For fans, it's going to be a tough year. They're going to be in a new division. They're really going to suck ass. And the team might move. So I saw this, when the Atlanta Thrashers moved, it wasn't like a long drawn out thing. It was like, oh, we lost the arena, we got to move now. There was no lead up to it. It was basically like, oh, end of this season, we don't have a rink, I guess we're moving. So, sometimes that's what it looks. I'm not, saying that that's for sure going to happen, but it's like, there's nowhere to play in Arizona. I don't think the team is going to reduce by, or the league is going to reduce by a league. So, or a team. Wow, I really screwed that one up.
They're going to just cancel the whole league.
If there's no arena, if there's no arena, they're not going to reduce the league by a team. So they're going to have to move them somewhere. So if they can't have a resolution, they've got that newer owner, Alex Mariuello. So he's got to figure it out, find a home for the team. And if that's in Arizona, so be it. But, maybe he can sell it for more than he paid for it or something. Apparently there's an owner in Houston ready to rock. He's got an arena. I don't know how I feel about a Houston team, but unless it's like Houston, BC, like population of 100 people or whatever. Anyway, yeah, it's for what they've done with their cap is really great. But it's tough. It's going to be a tough season for Arizona.
That wraps things up for this time here on Clappercast. Make sure you rate and review this episode and toss a follow or subscribe our way. For more content, you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Clappercast Media or on Twitter at Clappercast. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be back next week with more hockey talk.